What if the solution to Boston's championship puzzle is currently sitting in Golden State's doghouse, waiting for someone bold enough to pull the trigger on a franchise-altering three-team heist? Good evening, basketball fanatics, and welcome back to the channel, where we dissect the audacious front office maneuvers, the calculated roster gambles, and the trade deadline theatrics that separate championship dynasties from also-rans. Tonight, we're exploring a trade scenario so intriguing, so perfectly timed, and so mutually beneficial that it might just be crazy enough to work. The Boston Celtics, currently navigating life without their superstar Jayson Tatum, could be eyeing a seismic roster upgrade that addresses their defensive versatility concerns while simultaneously creating long-term financial flexibility. And the centerpiece? None other than Golden State's enigmatic, frustrating, yet undeniably talented Jonathan Kuminga. Let's establish the landscape in Boston right now. If Jayson Tatum really is going to return later in the 2025-26 season, and all indications suggest he will, should Celtics president of basketball operations Brad Stevens make an aggressive, win-now move at the trade deadline? This isn't a hypothetical exercise. This is a legitimate strategic question that Stevens and his front office brain trust are undoubtedly wrestling with right now. The Celtics are good enough to compete without Tatum, but are they good enough to win a championship? That's the million-dollar question. If Stevens can execute a move without overburdening Boston's cap situation, which, let's remember, he spent the entire offseason meticulously trimming, it might be something worth serious consideration. The key phrase there is without overburdening. Stevens has worked too hard creating financial flexibility to blow it all up on a panic move. The logical place to start would be examining whether the Celtics can replace Anfernee Simons and his expiring deal for another asset better suited to help Boston win in the playoffs. Now, let's be clear about Simons. The man can absolutely score the basketball. He's got range, he's got handles, he's got the offensive creativity to create his own shot in crucial moments. But, and this is a significant, but he's struggled mightily to gain the full trust of head coach Joe Mazzulla due to his effort and consistency on the defensive end. In today's NBA, especially in the playoffs when every possession matters, you simply cannot hide a defensive liability. Teams will hunt that weakness relentlessly, running pick and roll after pick and roll until you're forced to make adjustments. Here's where things get fascinating. Imagine if the Celtics could dangle Simons along with sharpshooter Sam Hauser and orchestrate a three-team deal to land Golden State Warriors wing Jonathan Kuminga. Let that marinate for a moment. Jonathan Kuminga in a Celtics uniform playing alongside Jaylen Brown, eventually reuniting with Jayson Tatum when he returns. The defensive versatility, the athletic explosiveness, the two-way potential, it's tantalizing. Kaminga carries a $22.5 million cap hit and has a team option for next season, making him essentially an expiring contract. That's crucial for Boston's financial planning. He possesses the elite athleticism and two-way impact to slide seamlessly into Boston's lineup and immediately impact winning basketball. Picture this. Kaminga pairing up with Jaylen Brown to take on the toughest defensive assignments against opposing wings. When Tatum returns, you've suddenly got three elite-level wing defenders who can switch across multiple positions, making life exponentially easier for JT on that end of the floor. That's the kind of defensive versatility that wins championships in June. From a financial perspective, Hauser has been an undeniably valuable piece for Boston. His shooting gravity and off-ball movement fit perfectly within their offensive system. But moving his $45 million deal that runs through 2028 to 29 in exchange for a virtually expiring deal in Kaminga would provide the Celtics with substantial cap space moving forward. That's not just kicking the can down the road, that's creating genuine financial flexibility for future roster construction. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road. The trouble with this scenario would be assembling a package enticing enough for the Warriors to actually pull the trigger. Boston would have to loop in a third team to make the money work mathematically, and the Utah Jazz emerge as the perfect candidate. They'd be thrilled to swap out some contracts for Simons' expiring deal as they continue their methodical rebuild. Here's a potential trade framework, though the key variable is the third asset Boston would have to include in their shipment to Golden State. Let's break it down. Celtics receive Jonathan Kuminga, $22.5 million with team option in 26-27. Kyle Anderson, $9.2 million with non-guaranteed 26-27. Warriors receive Sam Hauser, Georges Niang, third asset from Celtics, the critical wild card. Jazz receive Anfernee Simons, that third asset is where negotiations would get absolutely brutal. Any of the following Celtics players would work money-wise: Hugo Gonzalez, Baylor Shireman, Xavier Tillman, Luka Garza, Josh Minott, Nemias Quetta, Chris Boucher, or Jordan Walsh. Gonzalez is far and away the most valuable asset in that group, and including him in the deal might be enough to make the Warriors seriously consider biting. The problem? That's way too much for the Celtics to surrender Gonzalez, Hauser, and Simons for essentially a one-year rental of Kaminga and Kyle Anderson. That's organizational malpractice. The Celtics also aren't likely interested in moving Nemias Quetta, given their alarming lack of depth at the center position. Quetta has shown flashes of being a legitimate rotation piece, and depth at the 5 is too precious to casually toss into a deal. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the Warriors would be completely unmoved by players like Shireman, Tillman, or Garza. Those are roster filler pieces, guys who might contribute in garbage time, but aren't moving the needle for a franchise desperately trying to maximize the final years of Stephen Curry's prime. But here's the million-dollar question. Would Golden State be interested to a considerable degree in any of Chris Boucher, Josh Minott, or Jordan Walsh? Keep in mind the Warriors' organizational mandate right now. They're looking for players that can help them win immediately and over the next 2 to 3 years, the Stephen Curry championship window. That's exactly why acquiring a player like Sam Hauser on an affordable deal over that span would be an intelligent move. Hauser provides elite three-point shooting, doesn't need the ball to be effective, and fits seamlessly into any offensive system. If the Warriors have indeed made it clear that they're looking to move Kaminga, as has been heavily suggested in multiple reports over recent weeks, it feels highly likely that another suitor would be able to trump a package of Hauser, Minott, and Georges Niang. That competitive pressure would inevitably push the Celtics toward including Gonzalez, which brings us right back to the fundamental problem. Is that too steep a price? Let's flip the script and examine this from Golden State's vantage point. Why would they even consider this deal? First, they're clearly experiencing dysfunction with Kaminga. The benching, the reported frustration, the inconsistent play, it's all pointing toward a relationship that might be beyond repair. If you're going to move a player anyway, you want to maximize the return while you still have leverage. Second, Sam Hauser represents exactly the type of player the Warriors covet. He's a legitimate three-point threat who can space the floor for Curry, doesn't require plays designed for him, and is on a team-friendly contract. In Golden State's motion offense, Hauser would thrive. Constant movement, screening actions, and open catch-and-shoot opportunities. Third, Georges Niang provides veteran depth and playoff experience. He's not a star, but he's a solid rotation piece who understands his role and executes it consistently. The question becomes, is that package enough? Or do the Warriors hold out for a better offer, potentially from a team willing to include a more valuable young asset or additional draft capital? From Boston's perspective, this trade represents a calculated gamble on upside versus proven production. Hauser is a known commodity. You know exactly what you're getting every single night. Consistent three-point shooting, smart off-ball movement, solid team defense. He's not going to win you a game single-handedly, but he's also not going to lose you one. Kaminga, conversely, is volatility personified. Some nights, he looks like a future all-star, attacking the rim with ferocious athleticism and defending multiple positions with intensity. Other nights, he looks lost, forcing bad shots, and making questionable decisions. But here's the critical factor. Kaminga's ceiling is exponentially higher than Hauser's. If Joe Mazzulla and the Celtics coaching staff can unlock consistent production from Kaminga, if they can harness that raw talent and channel it into winning basketball, you're talking about a potential difference maker in playoff series. The addition of Kyle Anderson sweetens the deal considerably. Anderson is the ultimate glue guy, Hype basketball IQ, versatile defender, capable playmaker. He's not flashy, but he's exactly the type of player championship teams need in their rotation. It would be an extraordinarily tough road of negotiations to end up with a deal that satisfies all three parties involved. The Celtics don't want to overpay. The Warriors want maximum value for a depreciating asset. The Jazz want to accumulate future assets while taking on short-term salary. Threading that needle requires masterful negotiation, creative problem-solving, and probably a few late-night phone calls where Brad Stevens works his diplomatic magic. But here's the thing, it's still legitimate food for thought. Kaminga and Anderson would fit beautifully on the Celtics team, especially as depth wings for when Tatum returns. The defensive versatility alone would be transformative, giving Boston the ability to switch across multiple positions and match up with any opponent's offensive scheme. The financial flexibility created by moving Hauser's long-term deal is equally valuable, positioning Boston to make additional moves in future off-seasons without being hamstrung by salary cap constraints. The Boston Celtics stand at a fascinating crossroads. They're good enough to compete right now, but are they good enough to win it all? That's the question driving every conversation in Brad Stevens' office. Jonathan Kuminga represents a high-risk, high-reward opportunity to significantly upgrade their roster's defensive versatility and athletic ceiling. The framework exists for a three-team deal that could work for everyone involved, but the devil is in the details, specifically what third asset Boston is willing to include. If Stevens can pull this off without surrendering Hugo Gonzalez, it might be one of the shrewdest deadline moves we see all season. If he has to include Gonzalez, the calculation becomes infinitely more complex. One thing is certain. The Celtics aren't content to simply tread water until Tatum returns. They're exploring every avenue to maximize this championship window, and Jonathan Kuminga might just be the missing piece that transforms them from contender to favorite. What's your verdict on this potential three-team blockbuster? Would you pull the trigger if you're Brad Stevens, or is the price too steep for a player as inconsistent as Kaminga? And Warriors fans, what would it take for you to feel good about moving on from the Kaminga era? Drop your trade analysis, your counterproposals, and your brutally honest assessments in the comments below. This is the kind of complex, multi-layered trade scenario that separates the casual observers from the true front office minds, and we want to hear every perspective. If this deep dive into championship-level roster construction has expanded your understanding of the trade market's intricate dynamics, smash that like button and subscribe for more elite-level basketball analysis that goes beyond the surface-level takes. Your engagement fuels this community, and together we're building the smartest basketball conversation on the platform.